Part 31. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Hixie. Chapter 301. Chapter 301. 1 year later. A lot of things happened in the new year. For example, Gongkin Li finally passed the high school entrance examination. She cried and said goodbye to Ye Weiwei at the airport. I can't bear to leave you, Yewei. The little cousin also shed tears. Brother-in-law, you must protect my sister. Nangong Luo, who was dubbed brother-in-law, went back to China to pick up the child himself, but ended up with the unlucky child on his lap. Nangong Luo couldn't get rid of him. I wonder why this naughty kid likes to hug his thighs. Gongkin Li wiped the non-existent tears, turned around and took off her little cousin from Nangong Luo's lap. In order to save face for her family, she praised him. You must be smart, you know how to hug your thighs since you were a child. It's a good day. After finishing, he patted his little cousin on the head and warned with a smile, don't be embarrassed at the airport. The little cousin complained dissatisfiedly, Sister Li Yulai, I asked my brother-in-law to protect you. I didn't cause trouble. Just because Nangong Luo and Gongkin Li were often together, the little cousin formed a consciousness in his heart, those who are together are a pair. Adults thought that the child was arrogant and even teased him for his cleverness. From then on, the little cousin didn't change his title. When he saw Nangong Luo, he directly called him brother-in-law. But these are just minor episodes. The naughty child's emotions come and go quickly, but it was the emotionally sensitive Ye Weiwei who cried the most sincerely. Gongkin Li, a self-possessed woman, couldn't help but shed tears. Stop crying, I will come back handsome in 3 years. When the plane arrives, you have to leave even if you are reluctant to leave. After sending Gongkin Li away, Ye only felt that the people who had grown up with him seemed to have disappeared from his side. No, it's not disappearing, it's that everyone is facing a better future. In his second year of high school, Ye Weiwei's grades continued to improve. He was consistently in the top 20 in every monthly exam, and occasionally made it into the top 10 once or twice. Her current lifestyle is very fixed. She studies seriously during class and engages in some entertainment projects with her classmates after class. She insists on going to her senior brother every weekend to practice grappling, and her physical fitness and figure are gradually changing. She also plays games on her mobile phone or computer in her spare time. Although her skills are not sharp, she is no longer the newbie who was scolded as a rookie. In the second half of the second year of high school, when I am about to enter the third year of high school, study began to become tense. But the heavy textbook knowledge and test papers did not defeat her, because she had a goal in mind. Admitted to the most famous finance college in G City. She has the motivation to work hard for it, and she is very motivated. Classroom. Chiao Li, your hair has grown again, I'm envious. Shen Nianan stroked her back-length hair with an envious look in her eyes. In more than a year, her short hair has grown quickly and smoothly, turning black and beautiful. You'd better not cut your hair in the future. Although you look good with short hair, I think if you had long hair, you would look like a little fairy. Me, I didn't plan to cut my hair anymore. I just look forward to having waist-length hair when I take the college entrance examination next year. Boom. A bottle of milk fell between them. Ye Weiwei lowered his head to pick it up and heard a familiar figure coming. Feel sorry. Looking up, he saw it was Yuan Ran. A few semesters later, she and Yuan Ran were no longer at the same table, but they still had a good relationship. The things were returned to Yuan Ran, who thanked her and left. Even the bookworm Shen Nianan saw some bad signs. I think something is wrong with Yuan Ran recently. I asked, but she refused to tell. 9 times out of 10 it's an emotional issue. Kitano is facing the college entrance examination. Graduation means breaking up. We need to speed up progress during Chinese Valentine's Day. You are talking about splitting the CP if you can't put it back together, don't blame me. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 302. Chapter 302, Sweet Love is 99 Sweet. Yuan Ran bumped into someone as soon as she left the classroom. When she looked up, she saw that it was her boyfriend, Kitano. However, little beauty, if you don't look at the road, you will be knock stupid. B always liked to use a special tone to care about her. Even Yuan Ran, who was in a depressed mood, couldn't help but want to laugh. However, she still did not laugh unbridled. Yuan Ran was silent for a moment, then looked up at him. Beiye, I have something to tell you. Beiye turned his eyes and said, if you have anything to say, we'll talk about it later. I'll take you out to eat. Yuan Ran was shocked and glanced down at the watch on his wrist. Now. It's time to start evening self-study soon. Tisk Kitano spread his hands indifferently. It doesn't matter what the evening self-study is, you ask for leave. Yuan Ran shook his head and said, don't treat studying as a joke. You are about to take the college entrance examination. What are you afraid of? The results are just like that anyway. Kitano is very messy, but his grades are actually in the upper middle range, and he has no problem getting a bachelor's degree. But Yuan Ran believes that in order to strive for a better future, one should review hard at this time and strive to get higher scores. It doesn't matter, beauty, if you don't agree, I will take you out. Kitano is a fool, and a fool, he can do what he says. You're crazy. Yuan Ran looked around like a thief. There were scattered classmates in the corridor. The two of them were not eye-catching here. But Beiye was very insistent and only asked her, then do you agree? Yuan Ran had nothing to do with him, so she sighed and agreed, I'll just ask for leave. Yuan Ran seems to be a very independent girl, but in fact she is also very dependent on others. For example, she doesn't decide what to do on the ground every time they go on a date, because she is used to Kitano being decisive and straightforward, and he will never let her down every time. At the school gate, Kitano's bicycles are still popular. Yuan Ran sat close to him in the back seat. What are we going to do now? Relax, I've been very strict lately, I haven't been to the game arcade for a long time. Don't always think about having fun, you are about to take the college entrance examination. I know, whatever my wife says is whatever I say. Let's go. Kitano is always so naughty. He has a fiery and decisive personality, while Yuan Ran is quiet and gentle, but he just likes her. Yuan Ran's control over him was exactly what B had been missing since childhood. His out-of-touch personality did not make him bored, but made him feel warm. Some people, once you see them right, can keep them in your heart for the rest of your life. Yuan Ran is like this to Beiye. B took her to the game arcade. Yuan Ran looked out of place here, but in fact, she followed Kitano and played all the interesting things around her in the past 2 years. Judging from her usually elegant appearance, she prefers the carefree feeling on the dance machine. She has lost her status as the eldest daughter of the Yu family and the dignity she deserves. Only when she is with Kitano can she get the happiness and freedom that people of her age deserve. Hey, your car passed me again. Call me brother and I'll let you win. I don't want it, I won't give you an advantage. Then I'll give you an advantage. As soon as he finished speaking, the game car controlled by Kitano instantly went out of bounds. Yuan Ran won. Her swollen cheeks were smiling. Who told you to lose to me on purpose? Who made you my daughter-in-law? Give me a kiss to make up for it. It's just that the more Yuan Ran changes, the more she will be exposed in front of MRSU. Snapped. At the Yu family villa, MRSU looked at the paired photos, and even the cat in her hand was injured. Want to give the cat a name? Kaibeo, please tell me. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 303. Chapter 303 I'll give you 100,000 and leave my daughter. Yuan Ran returned home after evening self-study. Everything at home was the same as before, but she felt the pressure. MRSU was sitting in the living room holding the cat. While waiting for Yuan Ran to greet her as usual, MRSU suddenly said, "Go to the study and kneel down." "Mother, when did I allow you to like a poor boy?" Hearing MRSU's rhetorical question, Yuan Ran was shocked. "Why, are you scared?" MRSU smiled coldly, but did not change her mind. She still ordered her, "Kneel down until you admit your mistakes and repent." But Yuan Ran didn't leave. She mustered up the courage to retort, "Mother, I don't think this is wrong." "You still dare to talk back? Who gave you the courage, Bayet?" "Mom, I just like someone. You should not object to my choice on the grounds of family background. If a parent is angry because of his child's premature love, then Yuan Ran can understand it, but Yuan Ran knows that the reason why her mother is like this, the reason for angry opposition, is because of family background. Yuan Ran, you are getting bolder and bolder. Don't forget who gave you such a high-quality life. How pathetic would you have been if you had followed your mother in the first place?" Yuan Ran saw disgust in MRSU's eyes for a moment. She knew that it was because MRSU thought of her biological father. Her biological father was originally a poor boy. Her mother chose to be with her father because of so-called love. But when her father became rich, he began to take care of his mistress and did many things that were unsatisfactory to her mother. She was about to be born at that time, and her father even wanted to join forces with his mistress to seize the Yu family's property while her mother was giving birth. The mother was greatly devastated and cut off her love ruthlessly, causing her father's conspiracy to fail. So since she was born, she has received not only her mother's love, but also hate. She never dared to resist anything MRSU arranged, but Kitano became an exception. Feeling sorry for what happened to his mother, Yuan Ran refused to obey MRSU's arrangement and break up with Kitano. She obeyed her mother's wishes and went to the study to kneel all night, still refusing to admit that she was wrong. MRSU stroked the cat with a disdainful expression on her face. "How can a poor boy be worthy of the daughter of my Yu family?" "Madam, what do you think we should do now?" MRSU's personal assistant suggested. "Go and talk to him. A smart person should know to stay away from my daughter. In her opinion, a poor boy is nothing." "Okay." In MRSU's eyes, the relationship between Yuan Ran and Bayet is just a child's whim, like sand caught in the palm of the hand, which will be blown away by the wind. However, MRSU miscalculated this time. The assistant came back in a panic. That boy from Kitano was very angry, saying that collecting money now is temporary, but with the lady, he skyrocketed. He is so mean at a young age, so there is no need to be polite to him. The assistant takes action again. But this time I came back with a smile on my face. That kid is so stubborn that he even led his group of gangsters to threaten us. They didn't take Kitano seriously at first, but they didn't know that Kitano and his brothers were extremely powerful. Bang! MRSU, who was reading a magazine with her cat in her arms, threw the magazine away and turned blue with anger. "That's so outrageous." Meow! The cat was frightened and ran away from her hand quickly, running to and hiding in an unknown corner. "If you don't eat the toast, you will be fined with wine. Find someone to clean it up." I thought of a joke on Chinese Valentine's Day. "I'll give you 5 million and leave my son." "Okay, auntie, I'll leave right away." End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 304. Chapter 304, Forced to break up on the rooftop. Ye Wei was wasted in the dormitory today, and now he is rushing to attend evening self-study. As soon as she went upstairs, she bumped into Kitano. She waved her hand casually and said hello, good morning, what's wrong with your face? Baya touched the blood mark with red marks on his face and said nonchalantly to her, I touched it by accident. Here are the OK bandages for you, and Ran will be worried to death when he sees them. Ye Wei quickly took out the OK bandages from his skull bag and gave them to him, and continued running upstairs. Unexpectedly, B suddenly sped up and caught up with her, took her arm, his face was calm, and his voice was serious, Xiao Li, don't tell her. Okay, I won't tell you anymore, I'm going to be late. Over the past year, because of you and Ran's relationship, Ye Wei was familiar with Beye, at least as a friend, so she would say hello to him. If she met someone else, she would not waste time. Ye Wei rushed to the classroom and had 2 minutes before the bell rang. She exhaled and put down her school bag. Looking up and seeing Yuan Ran immersed in her homework 2 rows ahead, Ye Wei sighed helplessly. Yesterday morning when Yuan Ran came to class, she noticed that Yuan Ran was walking with a limp. When she asked, Yuan Ran said that she accidentally twisted it, and said that if Kitano came to see her, she would try to hide it. She met Beye again this morning. Unexpectedly, Beye was injured and told her not to tell Yuan Ran. These 2 people. Well. Isn't this the same as when Yezikin hid it from her? Although it was difficult, she could understand the reluctance to make the other person worry. I'd better shut up. Ye Wei chose to shut up now, but 2 days later she discovered that Yuan Ran's foot injury was not healed, and Beye had an extra scar on his face. The 2 of them had a tacit agreement not to see each other for the past few days, until they were eating in the cafeteria in the afternoon, and something about Kitano reached Yuan Ran's ears. I don't know what Kitano was thinking. He even injured himself on the eve of the college entrance examination. How could he get into college like that? Perhaps the classmates' words were exaggerated, but Yuan Ran stood up on the spot. I have something to go. Yuan Ran ran away after saying the next sentence. Ye Wei poked at the rice in the bowl with his chopsticks and couldn't eat it. Taken out her cell phone to call Yezikin. The connection was quickly connected, but she heard a mixed sound, as if there were many people. Brother Chen, what are you doing? It sounds so noisy. After signing a contract, people from the team came out to sing karaoke. The noise on the phone gradually diminished. It must be that Yezikin left the room. Just when Ye Wei was about to tell Yezikin about her recent irritability, she heard another woman's voice coming from the microphone. Yezikin, there is actually something I have wanted to tell you for a long time. I will leave school for an internship soon. If I don't tell you, I'm afraid I won't have the chance. Yezikin, you are very good, I like you, can you be my boyfriend? The more Ye Wei listened, his ears stood up. Varied. What? Affection. Condition. Someone confessed to Yezikin in front of her ears? Without waiting for Yezikin to reply, Ye Wei directly denied it 3 times on the phone. No. No. Not allowed. Everyone in the cafeteria looked at her. Ye Wei pursed her lips and quickly ran away with her cell phone. She left the cafeteria and was about to listen to what was going on between Yezikin and the girl who confessed her love. Shen Nianan happened to come towards her and hurriedly grabbed her hand. Xiao Li, something happened, Be forced and ran to the rooftop. Thanks Yanyan for the reward. I heard that CP is reversible and irremovable. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 305. Chapter 305 Mom, no. Beye, and Ran, come down and don't think too hard. Ye Wei and Shen Nianan ran down the teaching building. When they looked up, they saw 2 figures standing on the edge of the rooftop, seemingly entangled with each other. Very dangerous. The image and sound of a woman jumping off a building flashed in my mind. Xiao Li, Mom is sorry for you, I'm sorry for your dad, Mom has no face to live in the world anymore. Xiao Li, what's wrong with you? Don't be afraid at this time. Shen Nianan came to her to find a solution, but he didn't expect Ye Wei to be so frightened. He called her name but received no response. Shen Nianan looked back and found Ye Wei sitting on the ground, shaking all over. You, Xiao Li, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? And Ran is still upstairs. Perhaps the unintentional word stimulated Ye Wei, and she suddenly ran up the stairs. On the rooftop, Yuan Ran and Bei Ye still don't know that their actions have been misunderstood. It was only when Yuan Ran met Kitano that she truly realized that what her mother said was true. The punishment that mother said fell on Bei Ye. But Bi is just a poor student with no status, and he can't resist the threat from the Yu family. Yuan Ran wanted to touch the 3 wounds on her face but didn't dare. Did someone from the Yu family give you trouble? Kitano laughed, and he didn't care about his expression. What is the matter? When you go out and play, you accidentally argue with people and hurt people, little things. Yuan Ran exposed his lie. You don't have to lie to me, my mother has already shown her cards to me. Bi raised his eyebrows, but still refused to admit it. However, little beauty, these are really nothing to me. Yuan Ran shook his head. A person with very little emotion was so distressed that he shed 2 tears. Bi, let's separate for now. Bei Ye's fake smile disappeared instantly, and his tone became a little darker. Of course, I don't like hearing these words. Yuan Ran took a step back and started arguing with him. This is not a question of whether you like it or not. Why not? I like you and you like me. What's the problem between the 2 of us being together? But we can't be together now. My mother will not agree with me falling in love with someone without a family background. Yuan Ran has a relatively straightforward personality. She does not coax people around, she is practical and realistic. She admitted that she liked Bei Ye, but she had to admit that they couldn't beat the Yu family now. But Bi refused to accept his fate. He was used to being arrogant and unrestrained and would never admit defeat. But you heard me. Don't believe what your mother said, don't give in to her. Our feelings have nothing to do with family background, and your choice should not be influenced by others. Yuan Ran covered her ears and refused to listen. Bei Ye, you still don't understand that in this world, more than just liking is enough. We are just separated temporarily, wait for the future, wait for the future. Bi didn't want to listen to her reasoning, so he put his hands on her shoulders and said with firm words, you have to fight for things in the future instead of waiting. Yuan Ran, listen, I will not give in, let alone break up. At this moment, the only thing I did was run upstairs. The first time she rushed to the rooftop, she saw Bi dragging Yuan Ran to the edge of the rooftop. No, no, no. The only voice in the night suddenly startled Bei Ye and Yuan Ran. Yuan Ran pushed Bi away awkwardly, and that action turned into a picture of a woman pushing away a uniformed policeman in Ye Wei's sight. No, Mom, don't. Ah, Ye Wei held his head in his hands, his legs went weak and he fell to the ground. Whose turn is it to take the stage at this time? 1 Yezikan? 2 Suyuchen? 3 Hanzing Yi? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 306. Chapter 306. No one can touch her. The image of the woman jumping off the building reappeared many times, unbearable memories came to mind, and Ye Wei had a splitting headache. No, Mom, don't, brother, save me. She shouted and muttered something incoherently, but Yuan Ran and Bei Ye were frightened by her abnormality. Xiao Li, what are you talking about? Mom, look for my brother. Yuan Ran knew that Ye Wei's mother had passed away long ago. Xiao Lian, what's wrong with you? Please wake up. Yuan Ran tried to calm her down, but she held him tightly with her backhand. That expression was like grasping a life-saving straw and refusing to let go. Her back twitched, she raised her eyes and looked up at the person, her eyes full of tears, her cries suppressed the great pain. Please, help me find my brother to save my mother, save my mother. She repeated the same words again and again as if she was possessed by a maniac. The heart-piercing cry penetrated the eardrums and was extremely shocking. Brother, save mom. No matter how Yuan Ran called her, she got no response. Hurry, let's take her to the infirmary. Yuan Ran tugged on Bai Ye's sleeves, looking anxious. Ye Wei squatted on the ground, and Bi could only hug her. But when Bi touched her, she struggled fiercely like a frightened bird. Bi used fighting skills to try to restrain her movements, but she reflexively fought back. Yuan Ran was stunned. Bi shook his head at her. This Jiaoling is not simple. She seems to be struggling, but every move she makes to resist me is very clever. Moreover, Kitano had to deliberately not hurt her when he attacked. More and more people were watching in the teaching building, and even the teachers were attracted. Afraid of causing panic, the teacher led a group of people to the rooftop. When Su Yuchen heard that it was related to Yuan Ran, the first thing he thought of was Qiao Ling will definitely go, but when he looked for it in the crowd, he didn't see Ye Wei's figure. Instead, he met Shen Nianan. Su Yuchen clasped her shoulders and asked, "Where is Qiao Ling?" Shen Nianan reached up and pointed. She went up. I originally wanted to go up, but the passage to the teaching building was blocked. After this incident spread, teachers were guarding each floor to prevent students from going upstairs at will. Shen Nianan couldn't get in, but Su Yuchen left the teaching building without hesitation. The people guarding the stairwell stopped him, and Su Yuchen was let in without knowing what he said. Floor after floor, he ran frantically toward the rooftop, and finally arrived. The teachers were also there, and everyone saw that Yuan Ran and Bai Ye were nervous. Unexpectedly, there was a girl squatting there. The teacher was thinking about emotional issues and first calmed their emotions. Students, come here first. The rooftop is very dangerous. Yuan Ran shook his head. The teacher was very frightened. Yuan Ran explained helplessly, please don't misunderstand me. We are not overthinking it. It's just that something special happened to my friend. Ye Wei stopped shouting now, but kept squatting there crying, like an abandoned child, helpless. Su Yuchen also saw the scene when he caught up. After understanding the general situation, the teacher planned to pull Ye Wei up, but once someone touched her, she resisted crazily. Go away, get out of here. The kindness of the classmates and the anxious face of the teacher all turned into the mocking looks of those wretched men in my memory. Su Yuchen tried to call her name, but got no response. Boom. At this time, the iron door of the rooftop was pushed open again, making a loud noise. A pair of shiny black leather shoes stepped on the last step of the rooftop. You will never guess who is coming. The first one to guess correctly will be rewarded with 100 book coins. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 307. Chapter 307 The Flesh and Bones of the Living Dead. The loud noise made by the iron gate attracted everyone's attention again. They all looked sideways, except for Ye Wei who was immersed in his own memories, and Yuan Ran and Su Yuchen who were worried about her couldn't take their eyes away. The owner of the pair of leather shoes stepped up the steps, his face expressionless and cold. But he saw Ye Wei, who was surrounded by the crowd, her green eyes staring at the coldness, as if the air around her dropped several degrees in an instant. Gu Chenxi walked through the crowd, no one dared to stop him, everyone seemed to be intimidated by the strong aura radiating around him. This young man in his 20s looks very calm. Gu Chenxi walked to Ye Wei's side with steady steps, squatted down on one knee and said, Qiao Li, How long are you going to cry? The only thing that is deaf is night. Suyuchin was very curious about this man who suddenly appeared. Who are you? Guchensi glanced at him when he heard the voice, but didn't take it to heart at all. The reason why he is here now is because he was entrusted by someone. When Shen Nianan found Yewei in the cafeteria, Yewei was still on the phone with Yezikin, so Yezikin also heard Shen Nianan's anxious words. An argument broke out on the rooftop. Yewei is very sensitive to that kind of thing. Yezikin was not sure whether something would happen to her. It would take at least 2 hours to get back to S City from G City, so he could only call Guzikin first and ask him to pick her up from school. Including the psychiatrist Dr. Huo also received a call from Yezikin and was rushing towards the school at the moment. Xiao Li, listen, I have been asked to come to you. Whether you are willing to listen to me or not is another matter. Guchensi was minding his own business and said some unpredictable words in her ear. Of course, Yewei didn't give him any reaction. Guchensi was neither anxious nor annoyed. He stood up and inserted his slender fingers into the side of his suit trousers. His posture was happy and there was no trace of worry, but no one denied that they didn't know each other. Since you refuse to wake up, I have plenty of time to spend here with you. Dr. Huo is on the way here, and Yewei is indeed as unwilling to contact anyone as Yezikin described. As long as he promises not to let Yewei get hurt before Yezikin rushes back, he has fulfilled his mission. Suyuchin wanted to rush up and question Guchensi, but was pulled away by Yuan Ran. Yuan Ran shook his head at him. Then Suyuchin saw the teachers leaving the rooftop one after another. It was because the people brought by Guchensi had already negotiated with the teacher and successfully persuaded them to leave. There are only 5 people left on the rooftop now. B and Yuan Ran were standing together, and Suyuchin was squatting next to Yewei. He wanted to touch her but couldn't. Guchensi glanced at them. What, you don't plan to leave? Yuan Ran looked directly at him and revealed her identity directly. Young Master Gu, why did you come back? Guchensi glanced at her and answered her briefly, entrusted by others. Obviously, people in these 2 aristocratic circles knew each other. Yuan Ran tightened her fingers and asked, the Gu family's medical skills are said to be like the flesh and bones of the living dead. Why don't you treat her? You leave, and I will naturally save people. Guchensi finished speaking, but no one responded. Why, Miss Yu, do you think my words are not credible? Let's go. Yuan Ran took Bei's hand and wanted to go down, but Suyuchin still refused to move. Yuan Ran's expression was serious. I can answer your doubts. If it's good for Xiaoling, then leave. Suyuchin, I'm not worried, I want to stay here with her. Thanks for the reward of little fool Ye Ji Zioxi, I'm hard to coax, and girl's heroic dream. Brother Chen, it takes 2 hours to travel from City G to City S. You guys didn't even think about this problem. But in the next chapter, I invite Brother Chen to perform. The person's name is Guchensi, and many people answered Guzikin. Menji Shenxiang rewards 100 book coins, directly join the group and privately stamp the Chinese Valentine's Day to receive it. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 308. Chapter 308 The Emergence of the Second Personality. Suyuchin insisted on staying by Yewei's side, but Guchensi did not force him to leave. You have some courage, kid. You can try to see if you have the ability to wake her up. Suyuchin stared at him and tried to talk to Yewei. Xiao Li, please wake up. At this time, she was extremely fragile, which made people feel pity for her. It's fine if you get close, but if you touch her even slightly, Yewei will be frightened. Dr. Huo hurriedly ran to the rooftop of the shopping mall. Seeing that Yewei had sealed herself away to prevent anyone from entering her world, Dr. Huo quickly took out a string of bells and shook them in her ears. The only person who suddenly opens his eyes when he hears the sound of the bell is that he opens his eyes soberly. Although she responded, she held her head as if in pain. As a result, Suyuchin felt that Dr. Huo's behavior was weird, like he was casting a spell. Suyuchin reached out and swung away the bell in Dr. Huo's hand. The unprepared Dr. Huo did not grasp the bell tightly, causing the bell to fly out and fall directly through the gap in the railing on the rooftop. "What are you doing?" Dr. Huo yelled at Suyuchin angrily. Suyuchin didn't expect such an accident to happen. He just wanted to stop Dr. Huo's illogical behavior. Dr. Huo crossed his knees and sighed repeatedly. It was Yezikin who told him about the bell. Ye was the only one to respond, but now the bell was knocked down by a stranger. "Are you doctors? She is in pain. Can you be more professional and save the patient?" "Shut up." Guchensi glanced at him coldly and blurted out a very harsh rebuke. "If you fail to succeed, you will fail. Take it out." Guchensi gave an order, and several bodyguards who were originally guarding the entrance to the rooftop walked in and stood next to Suyuchin. Suyuchin's thoughts were in a mess. He confirmed that Guchensi and Dr. Huo were the only ones who could help yet. He let out a breath and said, "I'll go by myself." "You'd better cure her." The irrelevant people finally disappeared. Dr. Huo tried other methods to attract Yayi's attention, but it had no effect at all. He tried to hypnotize him, but Yayi gave him no response at all. Guchensi's cold expression gradually calmed down and turned serious. "What is her condition?" Dr. Huo replied, "She was greatly stimulated when she was a child, and the mental trauma left a shadow that is difficult to get rid of. This may be the reason for her personality differentiation." Guchensi is a doctor, but his expertise in psychology is not as good as Dr. Huo's. If multiple personalities were differentiated at that time, why did they only start to discover them in the first 2 years? According to how much Yezikin cares about Yayoi, Yezikin will know if Yayoi does anything unusual. If it started when you were young, how come you haven't performed well for so many years? Dr. Huo said, "She lived quite well in the years when she was adopted by the Ye family. Yezikin always took care of her. She became extremely dependent on Yezikin and put herself in a weak position. Will receive more protection from Yezikin." "You mean, she later felt that Yezikin could no longer protect her? That's why her other side of her personality appeared uncontrollably to protect herself." "Not really." Dr. Huo shook his head. The two of them were talking, but no one noticed that the light in Ye Weiwei's eyes suddenly condensed. Guchensi looked at his watch. There are still 3 minutes until Yezikin's flight lands. Ye Weiwei, who had been deaf to everything just now, suddenly stood up and grabbed Guchensi's throat with such agility. "Don't you dare tell him. The only baby who is very fierce, a fierce little fairy. You don't leave a message when sweets are given out during Chinese Valentine's Day. You really don't like giving out sweets, right?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 309. Chapter 309. You must come back. Guchensi, you dare to tell him? Yeah, I actually strangled Guchensi's neck. This situation was beyond everyone's expectation. He faced Ye without fear. "You don't want Yezikin to know your dual personality, so you plan to kill me to silence me." Ye Weiwei's eyes narrowed, his hands became stronger, and he could even hear the sound. When the bodyguard guarding the door was about to rush over, Guchensi stretched out his hand to stop him. Guchensi smiled instead of being angry. "Since you understand what we say, you should know that I am entrusted by him. If you hurt me, everything will be exposed." He just said something softly, and Ye suddenly put away all the thorns in his body and stepped back, with his back pressed against the guardrail of the rooftop. Suddenly, Guchensi's cell phone rang. Guchensi took it out calmly. When he saw the caller ID, one corner of his mouth turned up. He raised the phone to his ear and called out a name, Yezikin. Ye Weiwei opened his mouth silently and stood by the guardrail, staring at Guchensi with a fierce look in his eyes. Dr. Huo silently detoured to her side, just in case. I saw Guchensi reaching out and handing out his cell phone, obviously pointing in the only direction of Ye. Yezi I could not hear the voice on the phone, and Guchensi did not explain anything to her. At this time, Dr. Huo was next to her and said seductively in a calm voice, Miss Jiao, you should answer your brother's call. Ye Weiwei gradually stepped towards Guchensi's direction until he reached for his cell phone. Her hands were shaking. She put the phone to her ear and heard a familiar male voice coming from inside, Little Belle. Ye Weiwei bit her lip, not knowing what to respond. The man kept calling her name repeatedly, his voice getting softer and gentler, as if the gentle feathers could soothe all the uneasy emotions surging in her heart. She couldn't help but say softly, fearing that she would reveal the traces of crying when she opened her mouth to speak. Yezikin did not miss her little voice, and finally let out a chuckle, Baby, if you don't respond to me anymore, your voice will become hoarse. He was just a joke meant to tease her, and Yes' only voice blurted out in an instant, Brother. Little Belle, do you want to meet me? Think. She was going crazy just thinking about it. The scene of Yuan Ran and Beiya on the rooftop reminded her of the incident of her mother jumping off a building. The unbearable memory trapped her tightly, if not. If they hadn't heard Guchensi and Dr. Huo mention Yezikin's name, they would have wanted to tell Yezikin about her dual personality. She absolutely won't allow it. Yezikin must not be discovered, Yezikin must not be allowed to know that the little Belle he likes is not actually a kind and cute little girl at all, but a demon with a dual personality living in his body. She did a lot of unknown things secretly, and Yezikin must not know about it. Yezikin was still coaxing her carefully on the phone, if Xiao Lingdang wants to see me, go home with Guchensi now. Yes only direct retort, I don't want it. Be good, my brother asked him to take you home. If you go with him, you can see me when you get home at this time. Yezikin definitely didn't feel comfortable letting Ye Weiwei walk around alone. Ye Weiwei was moved when he heard those words, really? Yezikin also emphasized firmly, of course, I keep my word. Then I'll go with him. You must come back, otherwise. What else? Otherwise I will hide so that you will never find me again. Knock on the blackboard, please remember the last words the little Belle says now. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 310. Chapter 310, My neck was pinched red. After hanging up the phone, Ye Weiwei returned the phone to Guchensi, bowed his head and apologized to him, I'm sorry. Guchensi narrowed his eyes, finally willing to leave. Ye Weiwei still lowered his head, but his voice suddenly became heavy, but if you tell him about me, you won't be able to feel better. Guchensi glanced back at Dr. Huo. Dr. Huo shook his head slowly. She behaved very well behaved on the way back with Ye Weiwei. She sat alone in the back seat, staring at the changing scenery outside the window. Occasionally she would reach out and yawn, her eyes still red. The scene on the roadside became more and more familiar, and Ye Weiwei's expression and eyes became more lively than before. Dr. Huo has been quietly paying attention to her every move and trying to talk to her. Miss Jiao and Mr. Ye have always had a good relationship. Of course, we grew up together. As long as he praised their good relationship, Ye Weiwei was happy to answer, showing obvious interest and a little excitement. Dr. Huo pushed up his glasses and said, Mr. Ye loves Miss Jiao very much. Although you are not related by blood, your relationship is deeper than that of many real brothers and sisters. With just this sentence, the smile on Ye Weiwei's face disappeared in an instant, and she retorted coldly, we are not brothers and sisters. Ahem. Dr. Huo coughed deliberately to change the topic. Yes, only attention was attracted by the scene in front of her. We're almost home. The car slowed down and stopped on the side of the road. Ye Wei opened the car door and ran straight towards the apartment. Her speed is quite fast. Gu Chenxi always keeps a meter distance behind her, but Dr. Huo is already panting while running. I can't keep up with the pace of young people. Ye Wei took out the key and unlocked the door, then opened the door expectantly and went in. Brother. Brother Chen. She didn't even bother to take off her shoes. She searched around the living room and shouted around but didn't get any response. Even though I don't want to admit it, Yezikin just didn't come back. I'm going to call him. I panicked and took out his cell phone to dial Yezikin's number, but no one answered. Even Gu Chenxi, who was standing calmly beside him, frowned. Yezikin did return to S City. According to time calculation, he should have returned here, but now he has not. At this moment, he cannot be contacted. Ification. The phone slipped from his fingers. Ye Wei arched his back in despair. He's not here. He lied to me. Gu Chenxi saw that she was in a bad mood and walked up to her. Qiao Li, calm down. He clearly said he was at home, and you heard it, right, but now he's not, and he's still not answering my call. He lied to me. Dr. Huo, who finally caught up, heard bad words at the door, and quickly made up an excuse to calm her down. Miss Jiao, Mr. Ye must be delayed by something. Look at the time. It's peak hour after get off work. It'll be a little later. Very normal. Really? Definitely. Dr. Huo was confident in his words, but Ye Wei refused to believe it. She looked up at Gu Chenxi, obviously seeking confirmation. Dr. Huo stood behind Ye Wei and winked at Gu Chenxi. Gu Chenxi frowned and nodded reluctantly. Then I'll wait for him here. Ye Wei sat down on the sofa obediently and was in a daze. Dr. Huo wiped the sweat from his forehead and whispered to Gu Chenxi, we can't eat chicken now. The patient's mind is very fragile. Fragile? I think her strength is worth exploding. Gu Chenxi even touched his neck, which turned red. Suddenly I feel that this picture of Gu Chenxi is pretty good for little Belle. What do you think of Gu Chenxi? Is there any potential for development as a supporting role? Sit down nicely. Wait for Brother Chen. Recently, many Kaibao have drawn pictures in the book review area. They are all super cute. You can go and take a look. It's nice. End of this chapter.